Okay. Welcome to Murray City School District School Board meeting for March 11th, 2021. We'd like to welcome all those that are here in attendance that have been invited to be here, as well as those who will be watching via virtual capabilities. I'd like to read a statement to begin with again. Pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-207 and the Utah State Directives on Social Distancing, meetings of the Board of Education of Murray City School District will be conducted electronically until further notice. Members of the public are invited to participate via electronic means by viewing the board meeting at https://tinyurl.com/YAA6HHBR. Patron comments may be submitted via email to info@murrayschools.org until 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Please state in your email that this is a public comment for the board meeting and include your full name, address, and phone number along with your comment. Comments will be read during the patron statement portion of the meeting by the Murray City School District Office of Public Communications. Each individual will be limited to 3 minutes with a total of 30 minutes set for this purpose. Please view Board Policy SB 112 for policy regarding public participation at board meetings and patron comments. We'd like to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, which we will have led by Kelly Kirchner.
Thank you for standing. Go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Kelly. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Remember to talk loudly into your mic. Okay. I approve to go through this consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is the next one financial report? Oh, that's really consent agenda. Okay, delegation. Okay, let's go with delegations from PTA from Grant Elementary.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Mary Gilmore and I'm the PTA president at Grant Elementary. I'm happy to be here tonight. Let's see if this is gonna work. So I just put together a small presentation to kind of show you a few things. And Grant. Okay, good. Hopefully it won't save me in like 5 seconds.
I get to hear what you said. It's never fun.
Okay.
What was that?
It's not presenting anymore.
Oh.
I think you'd like to.
Oh, did you turn that off?
I didn't touch it. It's not my
Murray
fault.
tipped it. I didn't see him touch the TV.
Oh. I can just tell you everything. I can show you everything.
You went to a lot of effort. We'd love to see what you're doing.
Is your, you didn't leave? Okay, no.
There it goes. You did something.
Just stop for a second.
There we go. Yay. Okay, well, Grant is awesome. I'm sure all of you know that, right? We are stronger together in 2021. Obviously, it's been a crazy year, but we absolutely are so appreciative of all of our administration and our teachers and staff at Grant. And one thing that we kind of started at the very beginning of the year, which has been great, is parents have volunteered to just bring in every month, with PTA funds, we just give them a little teacher appreciation thing. It's always individually wrapped, COVID friendly. And that's been a really great thing. Parents are so awesome to help out with things like this. So we did have Red Ribbon Week still. It was just a little bit different when we weren't at the school, but they had the kids decorated the sidewalks with chalk there, you can see. And then we had each day, we had like Monday was, they wore masks, they got mustaches at the end of the day. It said, "We mustache, you do not do drugs," and so that's fun. And then Tuesday was crazy hair day. Wednesday, don't be caught sleeping, say no to drugs. So they all could wear their pajamas. So it was a really fun way for them to still feel, to have fun, even though COVID was part of it. We did have a fundraiser in the fall. We just basically have 2 fundraisers at Grant, one in the fall and in the spring. They usually do pretty good. We did a readathon, and the class who brought the most money, there's a few classes that got to do a life-size Candyland game, which was really fun. And they all got a book. All the students in the school were provided a book too from the PTA. So that was a really great experience. And this was our little bulletin board for the reading, kind of had a Candyland board sort of. And then one thing also that we did that kind of is a COVID-friendly thing is we couldn't come in to do parties for Halloween and Christmas and Valentine's Day. So we have amazing room parents. So we had room parents for each class, and they rallied other parents, and they always put together a fun little party in a box. So the teacher didn't have to prepare the party. They just had a party already ready for them, and the teachers are really grateful for that. And we even were able to send those home to online students too. So that was a good thing for us to be able to participate in. Oh yeah, here we go, online students. We love them too, and so we make sure that whenever we did something like Red Ribbon Week, we sent home stuff that could come pick it up at the school. And Grant always participates really well in reflections, and we had one of our students actually is going to nationals, and we had quite a few actually take places at state level, so that was really exciting. And of course, our spelling bee, look how great all the parents are socially distanced in the audience, and then the kids are social distanced up there. It was so great how our principal, Mindy Ball, she was so great to organize so much to help us to make this successful. And so that was a really great thing to work with the school on. Our science fair, we still participated there too. We had some students that did a really good job of things that way. And then of course with Battle of the Books, we just had that, which is so fun. The kids love it. And the PTA provided prizes and awards for that too. So in our spring fundraiser is going to be Run for Fun. So we're going to hopefully get some more money to be able to, one thing we're trying to do is to purchase a digital marquee for our school. And so that would be great if we could do that. We'll see how it goes. And if not, we'll just keep going forward until we can have enough money for that. So anyway, I think that's pretty much everything about our school. Is there any questions you guys have for me?
I think you're an awesome person.
Oh.
To do all of that in 1 year.
Really, I don't feel like I did any of it. I feel like we have so many amazing parents that volunteered that they just really, it's all the parents and teachers and staff. It's just a community effort, which I'm so grateful for, because I sure didn't win that the time for all that. So anyway, thank you.
The party at the bonfire, that was really cool. That was very creative.
Thanks.
I appreciate your creativity in this challenging time, because so many things have been putting obstacles in our way to make some of these things happen. You guys do a phenomenal job trying to figure out how to overcome those obstacles.
And we're grateful that our administrators were willing to work with us with some of our ideas, because they're kind of outside the box, right? So that was really nice. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. MEA?
Did he jump on? I have a feeling. Maybe we have to let him in.
Okay.
And we won't be able to bring him up on the screen because if I bring my computer up with that, it'll give us feedback. Are we still streaming?
Superintendent coming in, he just texted that he's on his way home. Or he's coming.
Oh, okay, great. Did the stream stop?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so maybe President Cooper, if we could go to the next ones and then we'll have MEA speak.
Sounds good. For Massa,
Doing multiple roles.
I am, and I love it. And I'm super excited that Mark is running late because that means I get to go right after Mary and thank her and show my appreciation and gratitude for the grant community and the PTA and everything that they're doing. Because if one thing has happened in all of this, it's that we've had a lot of things remain the same, and it's brought really and truly our community has become closer and stronger together. Students and families, teachers, a lot of that. I always say this has probably been the hardest year, but I think for me, I can personally speak and say it's been my favorite year, but I think once the hard is over, I think many people will say that when we're kind of forced off that path of least resistance, it forces us to grow a lot. And in that growth, we find new relationships and people and ways that we can become strong. So thank you, Mary. We appreciate you and everything that the board is doing for us. So I was asked today to share a message. Jill couldn't be here, and I have it written out because there's no way that I would remember to say everything, but I do want to share a little bit about some things that have been conversations amongst the administrators in Murray. So as we think back to our childhoods, it goes without saying that it would be difficult for any of us to narrow down our favorite books. Charlotte's Web, the Little House on the Prairie series, There's a Monster at the End of This Book, The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash, and classic novels by Roald Dahl and Judy Blume are just a few that come to mind. Books allow us to fall in love with characters and settings. They allow us to experience through imagination situations that would otherwise never happen. I was asked today to share reverence at the Murray Region PTA meeting. In collaboration with colleagues, we developed this reverence and felt it appropriate to also share as our Massa statement tonight at board meeting. We reflected first on the definition of the word. Reverence as a verb means to treat something or someone with deep respect. In our Murray schools, we as public educators have a deep reverence for the members of our community and the resources they provide for our classrooms. We have a deep reverence for the parents, guardians, and families that work every day with their students and ensure that they are attending, working, and showing up to do the work. And we have reverence for each other, for all the teachers, administrators, and classified employees, and the relentless efforts they provide to tirelessly educate, love, nurture, and support our students. As administrators, we know that all of you here or listening today fall into at least one of these categories, and we want to thank you for all of your work in this organization with your students and within your families. It is recognized and it is appreciated. In light of recent events, it is evident that there has been some frustration on all sides. These frustrations have led to polarization inside each of these named groups. Unfortunately, the root of this problem stems back to books, an object that could and should be revered. The equity discussions that have recently taken place have caused frustration. They have caused anger, and as a result, at times, they have caused the opposite of reverence. One of the many glories of public education is the idea of trust. As parents, we trust our students with our teachers, and we trust our teachers with our students. Sadly, some have recently questioned that. Some have wondered if our teachers can truly teach our students and keep the discussions occurring in the classroom appropriate and aligned to curriculum standards. As administrators, we witness the blood, sweat, and tears from teachers every day, those that are a result of the deep devotion and love they have for their students. We are confident, however, that teachers can and will do just that. The equity book list that has been questioned was created by a white male educated at BYU who has taught public and higher education for over 40 years. He has taught children's literature, English language arts in elementary schools, gifted and talented ELA, and countless other classes in local churches, PTA, and community settings. In his words, he states, "My personal theoretical base draws deeply from Louise Rosenblatt, who put forth the idea that the more we read and experience, the more our language experiential reservoir of words and knowledge grows. Put simply, the more we read, the better we are able to understand the material because we have more experiences and words to draw from. We must continue to support the idea of reading. We must personally read books that ask us to dig deep, think, and learn new ideas. In our classrooms, we need to have discussions that ask us to understand new cultures, new ideas, and new experiences. Not only because this gives each student a sense of belonging and reinforcement that they are a member of our community, but most importantly, it encourages their individuality. Diversity, then, can also be revered. Not only to develop knowledge and prompt equal treatment and opportunity, but as the creator of the list stated, reflect the great variety of cultures and nationalities within our school community. And how magnificent is this? We have such beautiful and splendid cultures within Murray. As administrators, it is our hope that we can build reverence for this community and the people within it through increasing our knowledge. We can do this by again beginning to trust each other, to trust our teachers, and to trust our fellow community members. It is our hope that reverence can be the foundation of our upcoming conversations. We just want to thank all of you for the work that you guys are doing. We know that there are many people who are putting in countless hours to support schools and teachers, as well as the community, and that's very important to us, so thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, for the NBA.
Made it. Made it. Driver's ed went well, so.
All the fences are still standing.
My daughter didn't rest right now.
No. I wanted to be here and make a statement. A couple things. Kind of we're getting see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I just cannot say enough about the leadership of this district. I honestly can't. When I go to MEA meetings and not MEA meetings, but UEA meetings, and I associate with the other districts, and to a person, I think that our teachers in Murray realize how good we have it, all the way from the directors to probably most of all the superintendent. She's just been amazing. And I just cannot express enough how appreciative we are of her efforts and their efforts this year. Also, our administrators have been just great, and of course the teachers have stepped up, as all of us have, to kind of make this happen this year. And there's been bumps along the way, but I just cannot express to you guys enough how we feel about getting through this year together. And this the last quarter, as we kind of ramp up and look towards next year, we're looking for a much more normal year next year, aren't we? So we'll make sure that we do everything we can to make that happen. As far as the legislature goes, seems like good news. So that was refreshing. And I know that UEA did an awful lot of work over the last 2 years to build those relationships and to educate. And I know that this school board association and superintendents did as well. So I think we made a lot of progress. At least it seems like it from past years. And so that's been a nice thing. So our teachers are exhausted. Our teachers are just worn out, but we're going to make it to the end. And we just, again, can't say enough about district, very appreciative of the extra time, made all the difference, you know, to be able to navigate the online and everything. So I know it was hard to do, but I think it's paid off because the education that has been available throughout the year has been of much better quality than even I thought we could get. And those kids that have taken advantage of it, I think it's been good for them. So anyway, just want to say that, and we look forward to negotiation season, wrapping that up, and having all the other districts be envious of Murray again. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Vespa?
Don't have a lot to comment, but it's been a few months since I've been here. Different things, been in COVID and myself, my family. So just great opportunity to reflect on what's going on. Sat at my desk and looked at the calendar, and it's a year tomorrow that we were in our meeting, as you all remember. And I remember sitting there, and at that time it was Rock Boyer says, "You're all sitting here waiting until the superintendent comes." I'm like, "Oh no, great, what's going on?" Then all of a sudden the email starts dinging through, and we're going, "All right, we're head back." So it's been a great year of trials but I want to share my appreciation for our secretaries, for our kitchen staffs, for our bus drivers. Wrote it all down, but all the custodial, our maintenance crews, and our IT gentlemen who worked very hard to make sure that our students at home had the opportunity to get online when we went home to teach at home. But I'm grateful for your willingness to serve the Murray School District as the Board of Education, and for the many wonderful things that you do. Grateful for all the guidance through the administration that they give us in small questions that might be asked, but definitely what's been given and shared. So just want to thank you for your time and enjoy.
Thank you. Do we have anything from the foundation tonight?
No, they are getting ready for
Okay.
pinnacle right now, so.
Okay. So we will now go to patron statements. Okay, as I mentioned, we have some that kind of came in at the last minute last week, and in fairness to those individuals, we thought we would present those to you today to make sure that they had the opportunity to be heard. So this first one comes from John Cushing, and it says, "Dear Murray School Board and Administration, my name is John Cushing. I have lived in Murray for 16 years, and I have 3 students in the Murray system. I'm concerned that the concepts and ideas central to critical race theory are now being taught in Murray School District. I would like each of the board to ask themselves these questions. Do I believe that members of specific segments of our society, including whites, males, Christians, Jews, or conservatives, are inherently guilty of racism by virtue of their memberships in these groups? Do I believe that American government law, culture, and society are inherently and inescapably racist? Do I believe that application of laws and fundamental rights should be different based on the race of class group of the individuals involved? Do I believe that the nuclear family is a hindrance to societal growth? If your answer to any of these questions is no, then any book or lesson plan based on critical race theory should be removed from the curriculum, at least in the elementary and junior high schools. I'm not opposed to CRT being taught at the high school level, but only as the juxtaposition to ML King's philosophy that people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. As you have seen over the last summer of violence, CRT has spawned groups and organizations that clearly carry out ethos of division and hatred. Are these the values we wish to teach our children? Thank you for your careful consideration in this matter." This next one comes from Matt Pugsley and Tyler Horn. Superintendent Covington and school board members, we as a sixth grade team at Horizon Elementary would like to take the time to express our appreciation and support of the equity book bundles that were started at our school by our administration. Earlier in the year, we have had the opportunity to use many of these books in our language arts instruction and even to go along with separate lessons designed to build our classroom communities. These books have had powerful messages that have helped open our students' minds to the experiences and culture of those around them, the world around them. Our student body is very diverse and has been encouraging and uplifting to use these books and materials that reflect that diversity. Through these equity books, students can see a variety of people of different backgrounds succeeding and doing great things for our community and throughout our shared human history. There is something very powerful when a student is given the chance to see someone who is like them, to have success in different ways. Those messages really resonate with them throughout their lives. We also feel that it is healthy and a strong community building experience to continue to show the students a variety of perspectives, beliefs, and cultures that they continue to grow and explore their own identity. These equity books have the potential to do this and help those students who are otherwise underrepresented. We fully express our support of the continuation of the equity book bundles and committee as a resource and tool to help us as educators reach our students of all backgrounds. This is not about persuasion or convincing others to change their beliefs or values. It is about promoting a value that we all share, the value of equity in education and equity in our community. We work hard to establish classroom communities that are equitable, safe, and fair for all students and have felt that support with this program. We applaud our administration for having the initiative to introduce such an important program at this time and ask you to please consider the importance of this program as we continue to seek progress as teachers, community members, and advocates for our students in all backgrounds. We hope that the district and community will continue to rally together to push the equity walk work to continue. This work is incredibly important for all children. This next one is from Jelia Suggs. It says, hello, this is a public comment for a board meeting. My name is Jelia Suggs. I will be representing the Black Student Union of Murray High School. Although I cannot speak on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community, I can speak my statement on behalf of the Black community. Growing up in Murray, it would have been nice to have schools include more diversity in books in their libraries. Lots of uncomfortable situations where stereotypes towered over me and would have been avoided. Kids my age would have had the understanding that the microaggressions they were probably taught at home were not acceptable. I find it important that this next generation understands that we should accept everyone, no matter how they may be from oneself. The Murray community is also affected from what takes place in schools. It all starts with children. We are Murray. Next one comes from Susan Marchand. Attention Superintendent Covington and Murray School Board members. As a parent of 4 children in the Murray School District, I want to voice my concerns for some of the things going on in the district that have come to my attention. I believe that you are aware of the issues at this point, and I simply want to say that transparency, honesty, and a commitment to follow Utah law are a must for me. The third memo needs to be replaced with one that complies with law, such as the first memo. When I send my children off to school each day, my expectation is that they will be instructed by teachers who act in a spirit of professionalism to follow the law and to teach the approved curriculum, and who expect nothing less from their students than kindness, compassion, and inclusiveness for all. I have listened to the school board meeting recordings going back into the summer and reviewed notes from the Equity Council meetings, and I'm concerned that the Equity Council members are not really open to the input of all parents. If it is determined that the Equity Council should continue, we need to figure out a way to give all parents a voice in that Equity Council, in what the Equity Council seeks to achieve and what the intended outcomes are for all students. Personally, I believe that most of the good comes from focusing on what we all have in common, while also celebrating our differences that make life colorful and beautiful. And this final one comes from Juliet Reynolds. Thank you, members of the board, for taking time to explain equity to our community at last week's study session. I have some concerns about the text policy changes being proposed. I feel the intention was to become more transparent and inclusive, but there seems to be contradictions. Teachers are not protected enough regarding being allowed to use professional judgments after following the A through I criteria for approval, because the teacher who did exactly that when deciding to recall me max to their classroom has been abandoned. How can this be a message of support to teachers going forward? It has in fact created more fear. I have a suggestion. Since every child has to be registered every year, add a section to the registration which allows parents to opt out their child from all books not approved. This puts the responsibility onto the parents and allows teachers some added protection. Since this is only one idea, I am not a teacher, there needs to be more voices included in such powerful policy before it is voted on. A diverse panel of teachers, students, admin, and parents should be part of this decision. Second issue I have is the criteria outlined for how often 4 groups of the new Equity Council will meet and how members are chosen. The purpose of the council is to promote diversity and expand inclusion, which is something that needs much more attention than quarterly meetings. As the presentation last week showed, there are major disparities in the Murray City School District. In my opinion, monthly meetings need to be held by each of the groups. Representation educates everyone, and I'm afraid the process for choosing who is on the new Equity Council will not reflect diverse representation. Community councils at each school come from a limited group of parents. How do we ensure that those who are underrepresented and marginalized are given opportunity to have voices? Please continue to be leaders in the state with our commitment to our students and teachers by reaching out and including our community before voting on the currently proposed changes. Our students and teachers are depending on us right now. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to it says report of the board, but we'll do Rich first. So.
Oh, no.
No, it's got you underneath it, Rich, so I think this is the title.
So go ahead,
Oh.
it's just organized.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
our call.
That's good.
All right, so report of the board. Let's go Elizabeth first this time.
Not if you did last.
Did I? I'm
No,
sorry.
I think I went first, but
I was gonna say, I'm
I never know what to say. So that's what I get inspiration.
Would you like me to
I'll
go
go.
to
No,
Candy
I'm
first?
fine, I'll go. So on a different note, I was really excited to hear that we finished out our COVID vaccines and having, I think, 76% of all of our teachers and staff. It is a really amazing number. I think we're the highest of school districts in the Wasatch Front, which is super awesome. And I also want to say that I continue to read the statements that have come in from teachers and community members about the Equity Council and the books that that issue is not forgotten.
I agree with Elizabeth that, I agree with Elizabeth that, don't think that it's outside or out of mind, because it is on all our minds every day. But also, just kind of want to go with what Mark said, is a shout out to our teachers. They're awesome. I mean, this year, they all deserve like a year vacation or something. I don't know what they deserve, but they're awesome. But I think there's been a little misnomer maybe in the public that as a board, we worry about the teachers more, we worry about the parents more. And in my mind, and as I've been thinking about it, we can't have one without the other. If we don't have good teachers that are able to do their job, we can't have students succeed and families succeed in their education. And then teachers need good families to support them. It's all connected, and it's all part of our job to make sure we take care of all of them, because without one, there's not another. And so I appreciate our families, I appreciate our teachers, I especially appreciate our kids. They're resilient, they're amazing. They have smiles behind their masks, and I can't wait to see their little faces and know what they're doing and know that they're smiling back there. But we work in a good place and we live in a good place, and I think that's kind of been hard to see the last few months. But then when you stop and you look, you know it's true.
Thank you. Hello? If I do it, I'll do it last.
Well, I really appreciate the technology that our students and teachers have for the students, because as I talk to people outside of Murray, we are just number one in the state on having our students having excellent teachers and learning in the school. Our school community councils, our PTAs, and the parents really stepped up to help their students learn every single day. And I just still believe that Murray District is the number one in the state.
Thank you, Kenny.
I wanted to kind of echo what Belinda said. We are still having lots of conversations, both in email and outside, regarding our what's our committee called? Our Murray Opportunity Schools Advisory Council. And so I appreciate people continuing to email us, voice your concerns, voice your thoughts, because it's really just making us better and stronger. And I actually have appreciated sharing some of the experiences with my children, because they are learning and growing from this, because there's not a one size fits all. We're trying to come up with a solution that works for all of us. Everybody's diverse. So I appreciate people that are continuing to take the time to communicate. And then I attended the drill banquet last night, and as I was sitting there, I thought our administrators at the high school have done so much to get kids to be able to do all the activities that they want to be able to do. For the most part, most of the high school activities have gone off pretty well. I mean, there's testing, the coaches have to do different protocols, and I thought all of these people are doing extra work just for kids, and it really hit me that there was a lot of people that have done that. And then we look at the PTA, doing extra work just for kids, and it shows me just what a valuable resource they are, and I appreciate our community stepping up and doing so much.
Thank you. I don't know that I would have anything more to add than what you guys have already expressed, and I would kind of align with your thoughts on where we are with our current equity decisions and with everything else that we're struggling with and or moving past right now in the school district. And thank you to all those who are putting the time and energy into making those things better. Thank you. Richard?
Just really wanted it to be escalated, so we're super excited for your.
All county managers are on the last. So rather than read all 84 pages of the manual, just thought I'd pull it up and talk about it. When it was originally approved in 2017, I believe, we haven't really made any, presented any official changes to the board. And of course, from time to time, there needs to be updates and improvement in language and some grammatical changes and things like that, and code changes. Utah code, public ed was changed from 53 to 53G. There are just updates that need to happen. So that's mainly what this is just to clean it up a little bit and change some of the forms that are available in the manual. So rather than go through all those, changes that have been added or in red, strike through language that has been being proposed to be removed. And there's some sections in yellow that I still need to address. So at your leisure, Cami in the hot tub, read through this, and I'll bring this back for a second reading next month, and it should be cleaned up, ready to go for approval as a second reading. And then the next item, legislative COVID bonus, I would just request that we table that for now.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
We don't need to necessarily vote on that, we can just go ahead and table that, right? Okay, report of the staff. First off, I guess IM 304, Scott.
Thank you. As we mentioned last week in board meeting, we asked that we would have the opportunity to go back to the drawing board and kind of to the table and to work on IN 304. What we're going to ask, as we've solicited input from state curriculum and from the legal department of the state, from looking at other districts, looking at our own policy and the many, many changes that we tried to do in those first couple of attempts, we're going to ask, and I hope you will allow that we are going to start over and have this as a first reading with the new update. So what we're presenting tonight is the first reading of IN 304 literature and text selection and review, the policy. And as you can see, I just want to highlight some areas quickly, if I may. The first part of the policy has the definitions, and I think we've honed in on 4 categories or groups: primary instructional materials, textbook, primary instructional materials, non-textbook, supplemental instructional materials, and independent reading materials. So you can take a look and see in those 4 definitions that primary instructional materials, that's textbook adoption. I'll walk you through that in just a minute. Each of these under the Roman numerals after the definition goes through the standards for required reading for each of those. So please take a good look and spend some time, if you haven't already done so. We would encourage you to spend some time with those definitions. The one definition that hasn't changed from our current policy, as you can see there, is the 4th one, independent reading materials, has a good portion of what we had in the original policy, as you can see. Then if I can direct you to Roman numeral 1, primary instructional materials textbook. This is where we were informed by the state that our 277-469, that code, was intended for use for textbook selection. So we have included that in here and have those standards listed for textbook selection in the textbook process under Roman numeral 1. Again, that follows our 277-469. Roman numeral 2 is primary instructional materials non-textbook. And you can go back to the definition there. That includes primary resources used by educators as part of their curriculum wherein parents serve on the district committee selection process as outlined in the procedure manual. This includes district endorsed programs. This also includes novels that are read in their entirety or class assignments or read aloud to the class for discussion. So these will be primary instructional materials that are used, but they are not textbook. They're additional instructional materials. And in number 2, Roman numeral number 2, it goes through the standards for that required reading. And you can see that those standards have now been developed and are not aligned with our 277-469. Matter of fact, most of that was in our existing policy already that we had before, not all, but you can see that most of that was. Roman numeral 3, the supplemental instructional materials. Let me go back to the definition. Materials used in addition to the primary instructional materials, including digital instructional materials, AV materials, district-created materials, intervention materials, and books for enrichment. An educator may select literature to augment a particular lesson. Such materials will be reviewed by the educator to ensure the materials meet the criteria established in the standards for supplemental instruction materials. And then it's cited what we're going to look at right now. Supplemental instructional materials may include picture books, news sources, article sources. And so if we look at Roman numeral number 3, supplemental instructional materials, the standards for those, you can see the criteria listed there. And that criteria mirrors the criteria in Roman numeral number 2 as well in that primary instructional materials textbook section. And then Roman numeral number 4 is independent reading, and those standards for independent reading remain the same as our original policy. And there are 3 standards that fall under Item A, standards for independent reading. Section Roman numeral 5 is primary instructional textbook and non-text, the review process for primary instructional textbook and non-textbook materials. This is where we get into the actual process now for these reviews. And you can see that letter A will be under the guidance of a district text review committee. And you can go through, there's actually an elementary review committee and a secondary textbook review committee at the district level for textbook and non-textbook materials for those first 2 defined groups on the first page. You can look at those criteria. Yes.
So it's thought that this will just be, these committees, or you want to call them, will just be convened going forward, or will they look at anything we have currently? Like our novels that are already required are just going through what's new or going back?
So right now, we already have a novels list that's set up for the district. And so I believe the assumption is those have gone through a process, certainly at the secondary level, similar to kind of what we're outlining. So I think that would be the intent, but certainly that is up to you to look at. And if you feel that we need to look at something, please let us know. Okay. Okay. We believe we were on Roman numeral 6 at this point, the review process for supplemental instruction material. This, remember that supplemental instructional material, by definition, is left up primarily to the educator to determine. And so to support an educator when they may have a question or a concern about any particular material, letter A says, School Text Review Committee. Each school may organize a school supplemental instructional materials review committee for the purpose of reviewing supplemental materials for the classroom and/or as requested by the principal and/or teachers within the school. When created, this committee membership shall include the principal, who will be a voting member, who will chair the committee, 2 teachers appointed by the principal, the library media specialist, and 3 parents appointed by the school community council. The purpose of the committee is to offer further guidance for teachers as outlined in this policy. So that's kind of a fallback or a safeguard for a teacher should they want to get further eyes or ears to listen and to see some of the supplemental materials that could be used in a classroom. If there's any question, they can reach out to the school level committee. Roman numeral number 7 is the area, and this hasn't deviated from what we have, mostly hasn't deviated. Number 3 has been stricken, but everything else comes from our previous policy, and this is where parents and guardians have a right in Utah, by Utah law. Parents and guardians may exempt their students from a required reading assignment if they personally find the literature objectionable. The student shall be assigned an alternate literature selection without penalty. By law, schools must respond to objections to materials or curriculum content in one of the following ways. And there are now, we're recommending that there be two ways: either waive the participation requirement or provide a reasonable alternative. And we're going to just strike the required participation as originally assigned. And then the last Roman numeral, and I think we probably jumped a Roman numeral, did we, or are we okay? I think the appeals procedure was stricken, so we're probably on number 8 at this point. So we'll make that correction. Reconsideration of materials procedures. And this is the whole outline of if anything needs to be reconsidered. Parents are encouraged to initially discuss the concerns about the instructional material being used in the classroom with the appropriate teacher. The teacher should meet with the parents to discuss their concerns, the reason for the selection, and if appropriate, offer a mutual acceptable alternative. Again, this is not to opt out a single student. This is when they're considering a text or a selection being removed from a school in the curricular piece, not the library piece, but in the curricular piece of things. Okay. Letter C, you can see if the parents are not satisfied with that outcome, they may submit a written explanation of their concerns with the instructional materials to the school principal. The principal will inform the parents of the intended use of the question material and its relevance to the core standards. The principal may involve appropriate personnel in the explanation of the selection procedure, criteria, and the qualifications of those who reviewed and recommended the material. Then in letter E, a parent desiring action beyond restricting their own students' access to a particular book or material in their own student's classroom may challenge up to 2 total placements of items through the reconsideration of materials procedure. And then there are 14 steps where the committee is convened, go through the complete process there, and it outlines in detail the process of what would occur when a reconsideration is made. And I apologize, I've read probably too much already in there, but do you have any questions or thoughts at this point? And again, we're open to any recommendations, conversations, thoughts that you may have as we look at this. We've also had some input from teachers and school personnel as well, trying to help us navigate this policy so that we can make appropriate selections within our schools.
So what was the feedback specific from the teachers? A lot of the response that we got there was just concern that they were not be able to utilize some of the curriculum, or their hands were going to be tied, or they're fearful of what they may share. So do you sense from them now more confidence that with how it's now being structured, that they feel like they have that control, but also the support that they need to be able to make those decisions going forward?
Yeah, I think even in the comments that we've heard, patron statements and everything, there's a balance that has to be struck here, certainly. And one of the things that we did here is they said, please remember, they asked our teaching and learning committee, please remember that textbooks are different than novels. And therefore the criteria has to be different when you select those. And if you put it all under 277, 469, that won't, it simply is not allowing, by using those criteria, allowing us to teach, novels and pieces that have been traditionally used to show a variety of sides of certain stories or different things, that are occurring, and to have those discussions about those. And so that was one of the pieces that we heard pretty loud and clear was, please remember that basically textbooks are supposed to be factual information. Novels can be fiction, nonfiction, whatever, in their writings. So, a lot of this is is fiction, and it's just a different set of criteria that it needs to be judged by.
Did you have teachers from all of the schools, or how did you figure out who's gonna help you?
Yeah, I don't know if Missy or Robin want to chime in on this, but I do know that they held some open Zooms and or solicited input from teachers. Matter of fact, teachers, and you can see this, everyone can see this on Boardbook and is aware that they can see this. And they reached out, I think in the secondary situation, they reached out to Robin directly and said, you know, here are some things that we're thinking, would you consider this? And with Missy, she probably was getting people, or teachers are reaching out to her, so she opened it up, I think, to a couple of Zooms. And I don't know if either of you want to share any of that information.
I just think you did a lot of homework, Robin, Missy, and
Yeah, I did. And I just want to give a shout out to the elementary teachers. So we invited a bunch of teachers from every school at varying grade levels. And then they, in quick fashion, I mean, this was a Tuesday afternoon. In quick fashion, they went back to their teams, and then they came back and had questions Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. We did some back and forth, got on a couple of Zooms to answer independent questions. So to answer your question, Jaren, they did feel a measure of relief and some empowerment with this policy, that their professional judgment would be trusted, and that they can exercise that and understand that, especially Jen, if you could go up, Superintendent, sorry, if you could go up to one of the 1 through 6s, 1 through 7s, that they could apply that, and that they have that, they can appropriately apply that. Their biggest question was, if we apply this, and even if we phone a friend and say, hey, I'm considering this text, do you think that it matches 1 through 6? And yeah, I do. Their worry is they want to be covered, but they don't want to have to run everything by a committee, and they want to inform parents, and they're going to do that. But they also want to build trust back up with their community. They want to just, they want to make sure that is helpful. And they also just want the community to understand that, there's nothing nefarious going on. They want to be transparent. They want to communicate with their families. They also don't want to make this such a big lift, and it's so taxing that they have to run everything by committee, decisions by committee. And I said, that's not the intent. This is to help you. And this actually has been the policy since 2012 or since 1972. I don't know when it was written or which parts were written when. And so this has always been your prerogative, and you just need to have sound judgment and really know and understand your curriculum and the why behind why you're using the text that you're using. And that helped them. So there's really good, rich conversations.
Lindsay, you mentioned that they wanted to make sure that parents are informed. What does that look like?
That's tricky. So they are going to inform parents on their weekly newsletters of concepts that are being taught. Probably not every single book that is going to be read, because that's not necessary, nor is it realistic. But they're going to let them know of concepts that are going to be taught, and then they are going to apply 1 through 6 on the books that are going to be read in the class. And if they know the books ahead of time that they are going to read, then certainly they can disclose that. But they're going to be transparent with parents about what topics are going to be taught, and in their weekly newsletters. Any other questions? So that's what we talked about from the elementary side. And that would be outside of like the novels that are already on those approved textbook lists.
So I also had opportunity to talk with some of our teachers on the phone. We did not do a Zoom, but we did have a shared document that we worked from with this policy to solicit feedback and also talk about any concerns that they might have. I think that
a lot of the concerns that you may have heard about last week where they listed novels was really related to having R 277469 apply to literature as well. And so that was very concerning to many of our teachers in social studies and in our English department. And as we looked at how to break those two back apart, one of the conversations that we simply had then was under the subsets of that with the literature and what that might represent in that selection. And so again, looking at the committee, they were very supportive of having parents on the committee. And in fact, they said that we need to make sure that we have teachers and parents, not teachers doubling up as parents. They welcomed that feedback as well. And I think that as you think about literature that your students, your children have encountered, it does become more controversial as they go up in the grades. And there was a very healthy conversation about the fact that teachers lead those conversations in a respectful way, but they're not led to show the teacher's opinion, but instead to teach students the art and ability and skill of having their own opinions, generating those opinions, and then writing about those opinions in a way that builds community and respect for one another. And so the other part of the conversation that happened is that we also have been using literature circles that have been designed to take the classroom instruction, some of the classics that have always been taught, for example, To Kill a Mockingbird. They've since given choice to those literature circles where students can then bring in another book that is along the same lines or themes, but then talk about the differences in opinions and how the authors are very different in attacking the same type of theme. So again, with To Kill a Mockingbird, they have social justice books that also are related and very similar, but it might be 3 different novels that are being discussed as all of the students are also reading To Kill a Mockingbird. The question that was asked just a minute ago about the notification for parents is one that we have been exploring as we've looked at those literature circles that students have a choice beyond what the required novel is. And the requirement that we've been working from for the last 2 years is that parents are notified at the beginning of the term of the books that students would be able to choose from. And as we've worked through that in the past year, we've experienced a couple times where we've had parents bring forward concerns and questions that have allowed us to get better as a team. And within those teams, a couple of the things that they have decided. One is that even though they notify parents at the beginning of the term or the beginning of the semester, they feel it's important to notify parents because they also get closer to that time that they're actually choosing those books. The other thing that we have discussed as a team is that if there is something that is sensitive material, that we make sure that the parent description, they fully understand what that is. So instead of generally saying there's violence, we would disclose that there may be a rape scene. Not maybe, but if there is a rape scene, that we are very explicit in the parent descriptions about what kind of violence they might be encountering. Originally, we simply talked in terms of sexuality, obscenity, or violence. And so again, we felt like that was important that we gave more detail to that. The other thing that we've talked about is disclosing to parents that there is that option to opt out at any point in time. So we had a recent conversation that was centered on a book that was being read by a student who got to a place where they were very uncomfortable with the content. We allowed that student to opt out of the book at that point in time based on the conversation that the teacher and the parents had about the book, and they came up with an alternate assignment. So the other bonus of us having this shared document is not only did we have a lot of feedback about the content, we also got some wordsmithing and some couple words of that in which that only an English teacher would really know and be able to wordsmith with us. So we feel really confident in that part of things as well, and very grateful for the time that they spent talking about it, thinking about it, and giving their input on this policy.
And I think at a secondary level, the informing parents seems a lot easier than maybe at the elementary level. Because at a secondary level, they're probably going to read 2 or 3 novels over the period of their course or their section, or in my daughter's case, none. Anyway. But at the elementary level, and I understand that's difficult because there's so many books that they read, and we want them to be reading so many books. I just don't know in my mind what it looks like at an elementary level of that informed consent.
When you're talking picture books and short novels. And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Missy hit it on the head that we're trusting our teachers to use their professional judgment. But then on the other side, the parents want to know what they're being read. So where's the balance there?
I think my simple answer is I trust my teachers and I trust their judgment. I do. I trust that they can implement those standards. And if they're questioning that, they can phone a friend. And if at that point they still question it, they can convene the school review committee. But at that point, if they have that many questions, maybe they should read the book, right? I trust my teachers to be able to read and implement it and have really good professional judgment. I do. That's the balance.
Any other questions for Scott on this?
If I may just also state that we realize that with this, however we finalize on this policy, that there will need to be some professional development, some training regarding the policy so that we're very clear on what the expectations are when we go through the standards for the required reading on each of these sections.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
IN 303, I believe that's Missy.
So a thank you to the secondary librarians that gave me voice on this policy, as well as James, the UALMA Executive Director. He also looked at it and gave us some directions to go to, and we made some changes based on that. So in this first reading, really it's about having a purpose and philosophy, and then our collection development. That in this collection development, there's a lot of places wherein we find our titles that we get into our library. So it's not just like one list and then we say, here's where we're going to get it from. Like they're pulling lists from all different resources and sites. And so there's lots of different sources for that. And then those different sites and those different book lists would reach some, or I think it's 3 or more, that's what it says right there. Yep, 3 or more of the following criteria. So it doesn't need to meet all A through Q of those criteria. It just needs to meet 3 or more of those criteria in order to have those titles in the library. So 3 or more of those criteria. And then this policy also deals with donations. Mostly the most important part of this is if an organization wants to make that donation, then the best thing to do is to run it through the foundation so that they can get that tax receipt and do a 501c3. And then the library professional is responsible to maintain a regular inventory of those books. And then the last one, not the last one, but Roman numeral 3 talks about parental restriction of individual student access. So in the Utah State Law 53G, and it's cited there, a parent can restrict their child's access to materials that are in the library. They need to do that in writing, but they do not have the right to make that decision on behalf of other students. Whereas in IN 304, they can restrict their own students' access too, but then if they also want to challenge it on behalf of the school, they have the opportunity to do that twice a year. In the library, they cannot do that. They can only make that decision for their own student. They have to make that request in writing to the library professional in the school. At that point, then the librarian will make a note in Destiny, and it will flag it if the child tries to check out that book. And that is where that will end, okay? And then, of course, in school level guidelines, the library media professional, and then those certified library media aides, or sorry, librarians help our library media aides at the elementary level, but they put in rules and expectations, develop fines and fees and replacement costs, and develop procedures for those things. So we don't have a library media policy. In light of IN 304, we decided we needed a library media policy. We also have a procedure manual that accompanies both IN 304 and IN 303. So any questions on IN 303? The librarians did give us feedback and input, and we made some adjustments accordingly. They did ask to remove the word media because media tends to reflect like the digital content rather than, I mean, they do all of the checkout of like CDs and AV materials, but they don't want the misnomer that media represents the digital content like we get with reading A to Z and things like that. That's not what librarians do. So maybe a definition of that. That can be something that, but they gave me that feedback before it got into our book. So if we want to go to a second reading. Any questions? I'm sorry.
With Scott, you and Robin, that is a lot of work and a lot of people.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot. I've probably talked as much as Scott has.
Do you anticipate any other additional changes? I mean, this is just the first reading, so really we'll probably postpone the.
Maybe not media.
Yeah, I just maybe taking out that media in a couple of places. That seems like just a semantic change to me, but a substantive change. This looks very much like our neighboring districts, but all of the library media professionals in our district, and then UELMA also kind of gave us their go ahead on this as well. Okay. If you want to chew on that.
Yeah, that's that maybe we look at for the second reading, just for sure we'll look at it now. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent Covington.
All right, good evening. I am here to discuss for a second reading the Murray Opportunity Schools Advisory Council framework that we have established to replace what has been our Equity Council to allow an opportunity for multiple parents as well as representation from all of our schools on that council. And so there has been nothing changed from what was presented on February 25th and then what we looked at last week. Again, the way that is looking is, well, first of all, the mission would be this would be an advisory council to the Teaching and Learning Team Steering Committee with the charge to examine district level data to determine what our students need to be successful and the equitable distribution based on identified needs in the areas of funding, programs, policies, initiatives, and supports. And again, that goes right along with the Utah State Board of Education definition. The purpose would be to review data, to establish goals, and then establish action steps working towards those goals. The way the committee would be structured, there would be 4 subcommittees that look at different parts of each of that. There would be policy considerations, professional learning, curriculum and instruction, and student-centered support. And again, they are facilitated by 2 district level administrators. However, there would be the parents and the teachers on there as well. So it would be a council that would really be working together. The council membership would be 10 parents, 1 from each school, 10 teachers, 1 from each school. And as we've talked about, representative of each grade level in the elementary, 2 counselors or social workers, 1 from each grade band, elementary and secondary, and then 2 school administrators. The selection, we would ask school community council to appoint 1 parent from the school to be part of that. And that parent appointee should be representative of the school community, and that parent representative will be the liaison for working with all parents in their school community. So it does need to be somebody who has the ability to listen to all voices and make sure that they are representing their school community. The principals will appoint 1 teacher from the schools, and then I will appoint the counselors/social workers and the elementary and secondary administrators. We talked about that the subcommittees will meet quarterly, and the advisory council members may serve on 1 or more committee. The facilitators will set the agendas. The agendas will be posted 24 hours in advance on our website. A draft of the meetings will be posted 24 hours after the meeting. They will be open public meetings that will be streamed on our YouTube, so parents will have the opportunity to see the work of that. Parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Orders will be followed. Subcommittees may create a task force if and when needed, as agreed upon by the subcommittee. And then we will review this, and we will review it annually. And as we talked about last week, you know, this is something that's new, and we're going to need to definitely look at it and see if it's meeting the goals of what's needed. And if not, we would need to come back and make adjustments as needed. So again, nothing has changed from the February 25th and the March 4th meetings where this was discussed. This is not policy, so this would just be, as board member or Vice President Johnson mentioned last week, a vote of support for this. And so if the board feels like we're at a point where that is something they feel like we can move a motion on, that would be fantastic. Or if not, we can certainly take it to a 3rd reading if there's some additional questions or things that you'd like us to work on.
I feel really good about how the framework is working and at least giving it a shot and forcing me to. I did notice in the comments that many of them, and I think this will be really up to the community councils and principals, about a variety of people being assigned to their committee. That is a concern. That as PTA president, I can call on the same people because you know you can count on them. And so our principals and our community councils will have to reach out of the box and see if they are a liaison for all of them. That was duly noted in the comments, I guess.
And very absolutely, and we acknowledge that, and that is something we will have to definitely kind of watch and make sure. I mean, it's you know, we do want to make sure we have a good diverse makeup as well, and thinking through how to do that. The best way that we thought was through the community council, because they know the individuals in their community. And again, it does not need to be a community council member. They do not need to be a member, but the community council is the one that will select that individual.
And I think that's where we kind of ask parents, get involved in that community council, go to community council, so that we can have as many voices there and get someone that represents your school to be on this committee.
Wouldn't it be awesome if like every community council had like all these parents coming and being like, pick me, I really want to do this because I really want to represent our community. That, to me, that's an ideal. I go, could happen.
I wonder, you're almost to 30 people, and just, you could have one little question and it could take an hour for everyone to. I think it's just really kind of a really big committee, and I don't know, maybe if you said, okay, we're doing elementary and then we're doing secondary, so that the committees would be smaller. It would still be a committee, but not having 40 people there.
Yes, and so on the structure of it, that's a great question, board member Merrill. So every person will not be on every subcommittee. They can if they want, but our intent is not to have 30 people on every subcommittee, but having people who are interested in these different areas to be able to participate on that. And that's a very valid point, you know, the larger you get with things, sometimes the more challenging it is to get decisions made. And so that's again why we're gonna have to evaluate and see how this works. But the one good thing is we do have representation from every school. And I think that's important, having both a parent and a teacher from every school, because every school is important, and making sure that we have that transparency. So those people are going back and talking to the people in their community. And while it is large, in order to ensure that we have that two-way communication and that transparency, we strongly feel like that's what we need to have at this point. But absolutely duly noted.
When do you think that this new committee will start? The next school year or over the summer or?
Well, if, depending on what it is, we need to get with student community councils and get that individual selected. We have talked as a teaching and learning team that we'd like to perhaps do it fourth quarter. But fourth quarter is very quickly approaching, as we're already at the middle of March, and so getting those individuals. So that is a great question, and that's one that I've kind of been wrestling with, because time is of the essence. We know that these are important things. And so ideally, if we could, we'd like to get it started in the fourth quarter. It is just going to depend on when we approve it and then working with those community councils.
Community councils came, because they only meet once a month. They could come up with it in their person in the next month or so. There's no reason there couldn't be meetings in summer though, like you said.
Does the community council meet once a month? I thought they were quarterly too.
No, community council meets monthly.
Yeah.
So
It's been a while.
It's okay. No, you're fine. No, you're great.
So then, that gives them all a month to talk about it, a month to select somebody or whatever, but maybe in the summer, the groups can further through, or however, which way they work on it first. I mean, you guys work all summer.
We do work all summer. So.
But maybe then we're up and running for the school year.
Yeah.
In summer, you'd have people on vacation all summer. So,
Well, we're gonna go on vacation this summer.
well, but I think
Give you a week.
we have to get things finished, sort of.
Sure.
at the end of the school year.
It may be more challenging to have teachers in the summer come in for this, because our teachers are not on contract during the summer. So that, it may be more challenging to have them come in the summer. So, if it's something that we feel like starting out the next school year, or if we want to get these people in place now, and then, again, I think summer would be challenging. And thank you to whoever sent teachers from back here, because that is correct. It's, our teachers are not on contract in the summer.
Question for me is, I'm looking at the function of the advisory council, and the last bullet point says advisory council reviewed annually. My question would be, there may be situations where we need to review that earlier than annually, and do we just have, is it important enough to have verbiage in it that will reflect at least annually, but maybe more?
Whereas we did.
Right, I don't know if it's.
At a minimum annually, would that, and I understand that because, right, all of these questions that you're bringing up are very valid, and we may have to make some adjustments, so.
Let's do that, at least minimally annually. I feel like we for sure will get this more often for a while.
And the other question I have, and it's probably something that's not necessarily built into this, but we go to the effort to bring in 10 teachers, 10 parent members. And for whatever reason, maybe one of them is just not engaged. They're not attending the meetings, they're not actively participating. I'm assuming we're gonna have some kind of a process or structure to maybe change out that particular individual so that we can get the participation we need on this committee.
And that would be, we probably need to go back to the community council of that school and say, we're not, this individual has not been participating, we need another individual. And those are kind of the details that we probably need to work out, and some of those questions, what that process would be.
Okay.
And very fair question.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions? Do we feel like we are prepared to do a vote of support, or do we want to hold on for
I move that we give the district our vote of support on Murray Opportunity Schools Advisory Council.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion?
Let's get it done before school's out.
Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
All right, thank you. We will work towards that. Thank you. I think I have the next 30 items, so yeah, I'm gonna,
Jen, how's your time? 'Cause I know you-
I need to leave at 6:45 to be over to the Pinnacle, so, but we'll keep working.
But you're in the hole or whatever it is in baseball. What is it in baseball?
On deck.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is the second reading for our school fees. And as a reminder, school fees have been posted out on our website under 2021-22, and they are broken down into the three categories: Murray School District / elementary school fees. The elementary fee is for our tuition-based kindergarten, junior high school fees, and Murray High School fees. And so with this, we have previously set a maximum limit of $7,500 per student. And so tonight we need to, we have to have this approved by April 1st by code. And so there has been no changes since the last board meeting with regards to fees, the request for fees. I will let you know that we have received a preliminary report from the school fees compliance office at the State Board of Education, and everything looks good with what we've done. Tomorrow I will be participating in a meeting with them to kind of dive the reports that we've been given, but we are right in the range of with what everyone else is, and they felt like we were in a good position with regards to our school fees. So for the motion, it would be to approve the proposed school fees for the 2021-2022 school year, including the cap of $7,500 per student.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school fee with the cap at $7,500.
I move that we approve the 2021-22 school fees.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I do have a quick question, just
Yes.
based on this current school year. If some of those fees weren't used because they couldn't attend or couldn't go, what are done with those fees?
For the most part, from my
They did charge
understanding,
it.
they haven't been charging it. So, now the classroom fees, things that are used in the classroom have been used, but if it was something that they couldn't do, they haven't charged it.
I think there were some refunds at the beginning of the year.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, thank you. The second one is the overnight educational travel request for 2021-2022. Where did they go?
I didn't have them in board book.
Yeah, I don't have them here, but I looked through them.
I went back and looked.
Okay, they are all the
last week.
same with there was one for drill team that Murray High School left off. I printed it, so they were at one point on there, because I printed you have them? Okay, well, thank you. I'm like, they were all on there. That's really strange.
I went back and looked at last board book.
So, but the only change was for drill team, and that was to attend California. And they had already, all of that was included in their fee request as well. So there were no additional changes to the overnight educational travel. So I would ask for a motion to approve the overnight educational travel request for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, I will take a motion to approve the 2021-2022 overnight education travel requests. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, and we will just watch to see where that all goes, because again, depending on situations, we will have to be flexible and nimble on those. School land trust amendments. We have 3 school land trust amendments coming before the board tonight. The first one is for McMillan Elementary. McMillan Elementary, in their original plan, they were doing STEM teacher leads. And they felt like that wasn't a priority this year, so they didn't spend the money on that. Also, some of the money they had allocated for character education, they didn't do it in the same way simply because they had online learners and in-person learners and did some different things. And so McMillan Elementary Community Council would like to take that money and reallocate it to buy FOSS kits. And you've heard me a couple of times with the FOSS kits. So McMillan Elementary's amendment is to take $2,600 from salaries and employee benefits that was going to be for the STEM teacher leads, move that to supplies to purchase soft FOSS kits. They had also put in that they wanted to pay for their student council to attend a leadership council. That didn't happen. There was no leadership council, so there was $400 allocated for that. They would like to move that into supplies to purchase FOSS kits. The Read Aloud books, they ended up not purchasing. They had budgeted $900 for that. They would like to move that to supplies to purchase FOSS kits. And then attendance incentives, that was written into their original plan, and they are going to take that out of the CLOVE money. And so the $400 that was for the attendance incentives, they would like to move to also purchase FOSS kits. So really this is reallocating money for them to purchase the FOSS kits to support their science. I will read the other two, and then if we want to break any of them apart, we can. The next ones are from Horizon Elementary, and they actually have 4 amendments they put in separately on different pages. So the first one is they were going to use, they had originally allocated money in their land trust plan for professional development for outside individuals to come in. Again, that did not happen due to COVID. So they would like to reallocate that money, which is $12,000 that was going to be used for professional services, to salaries and employee benefits. And they would like to use that money to pay their teachers as a stipend for providing on-site PD as they're moving forward throughout the rest of the year. And so as they're preparing different things. And then also they would like to extend their reading paras. So reading paras typically end in about May. That's where the money for the reading budget runs out. And they would like to extend their reading paras through the end of the year to support interventions and support during RISE testing.
Really great idea.
Yep, so
It's kind of early compared to how long we have kids.
absolutely, it's a great use of that. The second amendment that they have proposed here. Again, this was when they were going to go to some conferences. They had put money aside for transportation and admission and those types of things, and they had allocated $13,000 for that. They would like to take that money that did not get used due to COVID, and they would like to put it into supplies and give their teachers the opportunity to support, to purchase supplies for their classrooms that will complement their core instruction and their intervention groups. And there's a variety of different materials that they would like to be able to have their teachers tap into to be able to do that. So that money would simply be moved from the transportation, admission, and per diem to supplies. The third amendment again, this was from a goal where they were going to pay outside professional development to come in, and they had allocated $17,000 for this. And they would like to take that $17,000 and buy FOSS kits for grades K through 6. So they're reallocating that money that was not able to be used on outside presenters to purchase FOSS kits.
Looks like I need stock and FOSS kits.
Stock and FOSS kits, right? Right, and then again, they had another goal where it was some per diem money and some transportation for a total of $3,069. And once again, they would like to reallocate that to the supplies for their teachers to buy things for instruction and intervention groups, just to shore those up. So really just taking money that was going to be used for outside training, couldn't be done, bringing it in-house, giving their teachers opportunities to purchase things for interventions as well as the FOSS kits. And the Horizon Community Council did vote on that on March 9th, and it was 7 were for, none were against, and 1 was absent. And I did forget to mention, I apologize, on the McMillan Land Trust Plan, they did vote on that on March 10th, 2021. There were 7 that were for it, 0 against, and 0 were absent. And then the last land trust amendment comes from Longview Elementary. With Longview, they had a lot of money left over, again, due to carryover from last year. And so they're looking, and I've gone through this, but I think it's easiest to look down here at the bottom. They would like to reallocate or to take that money that's extra and put it into 4 different areas. First of all, they would like to do the PlayWorks Team Up program and professional development. And so PlayWorks, they had actually originally budgeted for PlayWorks. When COVID hit and when they knew they wouldn't be able to do that, they reallocated in another way. As they've had multiple students return from online learning, they're really seeing the need to help our students learn how to engage and be with each other again. And so the PlayWorks Team Up program and professional development is something they'd like to, as soon as this is approved through you and then the Land Trust office, get that going for 4th term to really kind of start that building that sense of community again at Longview. They also want to purchase Meet the Masters, and I think this is just brilliant. So they want to infuse more art education into their school. And so it is right here. Yep, it's a great program. So they want to purchase 1 track of 7 artists of Meet the Masters program. They feel like having that as an additional outlet for student creativity and personal expression will help to support their students and give them some additional opportunities. And then there's some supplies that go along with that just for the implementation. And then they would like to purchase Brain Pop and Brain Pop Junior. And these are some resources that allow them to provide different types of instruction. One of the things they talked about, one of the responsibilities of the school community council is internet safety and digital citizenship. And so that is included as part of this. And so this is a taking of extra monies that they have. It's not reallocating monies. It's all the extra money that they have and looking at how to improve and provide more opportunities for their students. The Longview Community Council voted on that on March 8th, 2021. There were 8 that were approved, 0 that did not approve, and 1 that was absent. So there are 3 amendments. If you feel comfortable voting on all 3, we can do that. If not, we can break them out one at a time.
Any concerns with any particular one of those? So we feel comfortable moving forward with all combined.
I move that we approve the school and trust amendments as stated.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great. I will send those to the school land trust office and for their approval. My next item is rental of buildings. And so as you know, in our current plan, we are not renting out our buildings for any outside use through the end of the school year. And so the end of the school year will officially end. Our teacher's last day is June 1st. We are starting to get inquiries as to if we are going to be amenable to renting out our building for different summer opportunities and then moving forward. And so I don't know that if that's something we need to make a decision on tonight, but I think in our next board meeting, I wanted to put that on there because we're going to need to make a decision if that's something we want to open up our buildings to for outside rentals, outside of our current school needs. And then we have our memorandum of understanding with Murray City that uses our buildings. So I just wanted to put that on as an agenda item for you to begin to think about.
I guess my only is what additional work is it from our staff?
Right, and that's what we've got to think through. We would need to hire supervisors, because right now we don't have any of our supervisors, and we would have to hire, it would go back to what it was before pre-COVID, and so we have to bring some of those individuals back. That's a great question. And if you'd like, I can prepare a document with that for you, if that would be beneficial.
Yeah, I think looking at them, and does it make sense? We want to have buildings that the community can use, but does it make sense?
Great.
Things are changing with regard to the health department's restrictions, and that may impact what we do or how we do it as well.
Right.
There's community dance going.
Community dance is going well, I think. Yeah. Yeah. We've got kids back, and I think they're from what I understand, they're happy and doing well. So
Because that was kind of our, we said, let's like.
Try that out,
and
right.
See how that.
Right. And then finally, the last thing that I have, in our last board meeting, the boards talked about that to have schools submit what they would like to do for the end of the year, and that would be entertained. And so all of our elementary schools have submitted what they would like to do for their end of year activities. And for the most part, they all have the description of what it is, their first choice proposal, and then their backup proposal. And so I have all of these listed for you. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them. Really, the only one that needs to be decided on immediately or prior to us going on spring break would be Liberty Elementary. It has a fun run, and that requires them to do several things to kind of lead up to that fun run. Everything else that's on there is in May, and I've talked to the principals, and they're like, if the board wants to wait until April's meeting to decide if these are all going to go forward. But the one from Liberty Elementary, they did ask that I would point out that their fun run is something that they use for a fundraiser. And you can see kind of what they've got laid out. That's the one that they are most concerned right now about having an opportunity to know if they can do that or not, because again, she needs to start preparing for that immediately after spring break. So, and if you don't feel comfortable at this point saying, let's do these and we need to wait until April, we'll roll with that, but.
As I worked through them, most of them were very similar with sixth grade promotion, outside field day, and then awards type of. There was one that had a school barbecue.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that have the school barbecue, so.
I don't know, that one's a little, I mean, there are certain protocols that have to be followed in a COVID world when serving food to lots of people.
And keep in mind that despite the April 10th lifting of the mask restrictions, that will not change for K-12. So, and if you saw the Murray memo yesterday, so masks would be required. And again, that may be, food in that manner could be.
I didn't have any problems with the kickball games and the field days and the awards assemblies because those are mask events. The food ones kind of made me wonder, and I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. Does that make sense to have food?
With the fun run for Liberty, I mean, I've gone to it previously, and the parents were there, but for this year, will the parents be going to the barbecue, or is the barbecue just for the kids?
Is it after the fun run?
It's after, so the barbecue would just be for students. Parents would not be invited to have the lunch.
Because the kids already eat.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So
true.
I'm fine with them doing the barbecue after the fun run, and we
I didn't
move forward
realize
on the fun run.
Well, if the kids in just little cartons, so that food isn't just open to everyone, and then the kids can go someplace on the lawn.
And I guess they're following their same protocol of school lunch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the same protocol that school lunch has, so.
And that's what I guess I'm looking at is in their options of their proposals, they've all paid close attention to COVID protocols. They don't look like they're planning on them to all be just status quo as it was. It looks like they've all thought through different ways of doing it, so.
And we're so grateful that our high school has the test options to do things, but that's not something to do with our younger students. And so I think they really have thought a lot about this and trying to figure out a way to provide our students some end of year opportunities that give them hope for and excitement to end the year, and then knowing that they'll come back to that. So
Yeah, I think we need to end this year strong for next year. Is this the first reading? Is this a motion?
it would be a motion of support. And again, if you would like to take another look at it in April, the only one that would, again, the only principal that said, I need to know as soon as possible prior to spring break, is the fund run for Liberty Elementary.
I'd like to move that we give a motion of support for our schools and their end of year activities as presented to us and with COVID protocols in mind.
I
Motion.
second.
Okay, so do we have the support? Full support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, our principals have done a great job. I don't think they'll
That's why I
do
have
anything with it.
a lot of.
They're trying their best to keep compliant.
Absolutely. We have great principals, and I think right now you'll have very happy principals, and I think we're gonna have happy students that will feel that. So, with that, I would like to ask the board, first of all, I'm going to need to excuse myself, but ask the board to go into closed session, which Richard Reese and Assistant Superintendent Bushnell are prepared to facilitate, so.
Full board? Tammy? Vote?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then adjourn to a closed session.